Chapter 3. Falkali readied his sword and steeled himself for whatever was to come next. He simply stared for a moment, still pondering how this man got past him. Finally, he spoke.
"Wake up!"
he barked. There was no response. He waited a moment longer, then spoke up again.
"Hey, I'm talking to you! Get up!"
Still silence. Was this man dead? He had to have taken quite the fall in order to produce the thud that disturbed the night's peace. Falkali crouched down and with his free hand put 2 fingers on the man's neck. He was cold, but he wasn't dead. He could feel the man's heartbeat at a slow but steady pace. Falkali took a moment to observe the strange man closer. He was pale, pasty even, sporting curly black hair that swept back across his head. He also appeared to be quite small, no more than 4 feet tall, but his features were mature, certainly not those of a child. Falkali was positive he wasn't looking at a dwarf, maybe a half-foot. He examined the man's clothing, white and black robes, not those of a cleric's or a priest's. In fact, there was no imagery on him at all, not even bracelets or a necklace. Only a notebook and a slowly emptying jar of ink. He spotted a tear in the back of the robes. He ran his hand across the spot and discovered a second. 2 vertical strips, barely less than a foot apart, directly adjacent to each other. He shuddered, as it didn't take him long to deduce what those were from. But what happened? Falkali looked up, now piecing together how the man had fallen. He reached for the journal and opened a page. It was a map, a chart of stars and celestial bodies, but none he had seen before. Who was this person, and what was he doing here? He had heard stories before, but didn't know they still existed. Was this person The man shifted and groaned. Falkali quickly stood, stepping back and raising his sword again.
"Awake yet?"
he called out. The man stretched and let out a yawn. Falkali slid the book back with his talons before the mysterious stranger would have the chance to ask about it.
"Not again,"
the man groaned. He looked at Falkali as he sat up, a questioning look in his eyes, but not the sort of question Falkali had come to expect. The man didn't seem to care at all about the bird-like appearance of the young warrior. Instead, he cleared his throat and said with a slight accent,
"You there. Where am I?"
Falkali was speechless. How dared this man think he was in a position to be asking the questions? He had trespassed into Falkali's woods, after all. He should be questioning him.
Hello?
He crooned, holding the word out to get the eagle's attention.
"I heard you just fine."
Falkali huffed.
"I'm just still deciding on whether I should hear you out or kill you now and spare myself the trouble."
The stranger winced.
"Yikes, you seem like a lot of fun to be around. Are you gonna tell me where I am, or should I just move on? It sounds like there's a party or something just on the other side of this forest. I'm sure someone there would be willing to spare me a conversation."
Falkali lowered his beak.
"You're not going anywhere until you tell me how you got here." "I wish I could tell you, my feathered friend. But all I know is that 1 second I was home with my wife, and the next I was face first in the dirt."
Silence fell between them for only a moment. He made an expression Falkali didn't immediately recognize, one that looked like pain, but somehow hid the faintest glimmer of a smile.
"She did it again!"
the man exclaimed.
"I remember now. We were arguing over her parents coming to visit, and she kicked me out again."
Trouble at home seemed to be something much more common for the ground folk than what Falkali had experienced back on the floating islands. He found himself thinking back there, to his home, where his mother and father were. He wouldn't let himself think about them for too long, though. It almost made him sick. It had been nearly 3 years since he'd last seen them. He wondered what they'd think of him now. His reputation as the human-eating bird monster, his tattered clothes, physique reduced to someone more lean than the towering soldier he was raised to be. His thoughts almost distracted him from the man standing right in front of him now, muttering to himself about how he was to get home and still trying to figure out where he was.
"Could you spare me a feather?"
he asked dryly, looking up at the bird's face. Falkali stared at him. A cold, disgusted look twisted across his face.
"No,"
he said pointedly. The stranger stepped a little closer to him and held out a palm, a small jar of ink sitting in the center of it.
"You see, my wife, she really likes it when I make maps for her. Star charts. I figured that if I could make a new one, map the stars of this world here, I could maybe make it up to her for what I said about her parents. But you see, I don't have a pen with me to log my findings. I was hoping maybe you'd help me out.
The man looked even smaller than he really was, standing here now, asking for Falkali's help. Another thought was racing through his mind.
This world here? Is that what he had just said?
Falkali didn't want to think about the implications of that. He had heard of other worlds before. Other planes, some had called them. But his suspicions of this man were only growing deeper, and he wanted nothing more to do with him. Falkali reached his own hand out towards the man's. With just a short motion, he tipped the ink jar out of his hand, which tumbled to the dark earth below, spilling as it landed in the soil.
Find your own. I'm done here,
he said coldly.
There's a little town called Mesa just north of here. Go there and buy her something to say sorry when you get back. Show your wife some respect, even when you disagree with her. And maybe you won't find yourself thrown to the woods or made into someone else's problem. Good night,
he growled as he turned away and began to walk back towards the beach, while the mysterious man disheartenedly began to pick up his ink bottle, trying to spill as little more as possible in the process. Falkali had barely gone a few yards before he heard screaming. An occasional scream would have him turning his head, but he would never involve himself in the locals' troubles. But this was something different, far more horrifying than anything he'd heard before. Not the screams of someone discovering a deceased loved one, or a wild animal scurrying through the center of town, bothering the housewives handling their daily chores. This was panic, terrible harrowing shrieking from dozens of people who were scared for their lives.
Were they under attack? Was this forest in danger?
The blood in his veins surged and his heart pulsed harder than it had in years. His feet started moving, and his wings spread before he even knew why. He was sprinting, beginning a glide before he noticed the stranger running briskly alongside him.
Do people usually get this excited when the carnival comes to town?
The man shouted.
No, I've never heard anything like this. Not here, at least. What are you doing? You said that someone in this town could help me, right? I don't have anywhere else to go.
Falkali began to feel a twinge of guilt and turned his head away from the stranger's kind gaze for a moment. He turned back to the man.
Take my hand.
The pale man hesitated, but came close and stretched his arm out.
I'm Navir, by the way.
Falkali took his hand and flapped his wings as hard as he could, lifting both of them off the ground and up into the cool night air.
Falkali, I'm sorry about earlier. I'm not used to talking to people. No sweat. I understand that someone randomly popping into your home isn't a pleasant surprise.
Home. This had been Falkali's home for the last 3 years, and this odd stranger just wanted to get back to his. Falkali would ensure that his home, however unlike it felt, would be safe, and that Navir would return to his. They both remained silent as they soared into the village towards the people running in the opposite direction beneath them. Away from the pair's destination, the enormous tent set up on the far side of the little town.